Okay, so this is recording. This is Cliff Tom. I'm not as hip as a lot of people. I find it fascinating. Everybody has gotten famous or relatively famous and generated so much money off the internet. I think it's great to take away money from the old guard in terms of there was just a few entities and businesses that had access to us in terms of disseminating information, right? I remember going to England and BBC had like 3 channels. This was in the 90s, right? Early 90s, I think, right? But anyway, this is Cliff Tom. You see my name there. A little preface to what then I want to talk about because I've got then the meeting coming up here. So this is now, I think, maybe the 10th to 12th. I don't know because it just seems absolutely ridiculous that we keep interviewing for the United States Department English Language Fellowship. I guess we are fellows just waiting for assignment. Now, I've only had one. Timely place, it was during the virus pandemic. It was definitely pandemonium. And I was in Cambodia. This is online on my YouTube channel too. If I post this publicly or privately and you're following me. This was with Nepalese University. I forgot. Lumbini University. It was wonderful. It was great. It was cut short. No reason, no rationale, no explanation. So that was that. And then I was happy to have received it, but then I'm wondering why I've never been placed. And then I'm leading into now this election that's happening right now. So myself being more or less 5th, 6th, 7th generation almost American, obviously speaking my American English, I was learnt in the British terms, but I learned as well in Cambridge University, much respect to where the language originated from. So that said, there's no doubt about it. America is one of the greatest multicultural and multinational countries in the world. Hence, that's what makes us great is also what makes us vulnerable. I don't say we're a melting pot because we're not. You see divisions everywhere, and it's birds of a feather in general, and I agree with that. Now, that said, this election coming up versus Kamala Harris and Donald Trump is like none other than that I've ever seen. Obviously, a woman of color and a female. Second female now running behind Hillary Clinton. And we all vote according to. I may have to cut this short coming up, right? Because I'm giving myself 15 minutes to preface all this. We all vote according to our own interests. Now, I feel that Donald Trump, regardless that he's a white heterosexual like me, I feel as though we have become I know as though we've become a complete nanny state. My mother still Baker acted. I can't visit her. She hasn't met her 10-year-old grandson down in horrible Florida. I don't know. This DeSantis says he's a freedom lover, but I don't see much of it. We've also got 2 senators who's helped me in the past and who I think are good men, but I don't know if their hands are tied, but they just don't want to do anything as well because Governor DeSantis is a Republican, fellow Republican. But I think he's a puppet, whereas Trump is definitely not a puppet. He's the puppet. He's the master. So that said, I admire that about the Trumpster, and we'll see what comes out. So now getting back to this interview, I was up for assignment in Armenia with the Peace Corps, which is another U.S. federal entity. I would have loved to have done that. Gross mishandling. And now I can understand why, digging into all this. Obviously, they're worried about their own jobs and their bottom line, let alone what the future holds if Trump wins, because they were all appointed by President Biden. But that said, it's just blatant mishandling by the Peace Corps. So I've written a letter. I will share this video with President Trump if he wins on a follow-up, because I can only imagine how busy he'll be right? What is it? The first 90 days, right? But I definitely will follow back up with him to hopefully get that Peace Corps assignment. I would love that. And secondly, or to finally get placement at a U.S. State Department. Now, when he says President Trump drained the swamp, it is college academia, not to mention the American bureaucracy, I would say. I don't know what percentage. I don't know how you would find that out. I would say at least 75% Democratic voters and Democratic or liberal partiers, registered Democrats. That's a better way of putting it. So stacks, and especially if you're a voiced libertarian, non-Democrat like myself, an old Lincoln Republican, freedom for everybody and everything, just don't nanny state me, which is what Florida's done to our family. Destroyed it, actually destroyed it, and falsely arrested me 4 times at fascist, racist, historically racist county. And corrupt. So that said, this should be interesting. About 10 more minutes before a Ms. Peggy Kong. No, I think you should research who's interviewing you, and hopefully she's researched me. Now, I bet she gets on and says, good evening. Because even though I've told her now several times I'm in China, I've been in China, it's on my CV that I've provided her, they just don't. And I don't know if it's an age demographic. They're just ill-prepared when it comes to knowing who you're interviewing, where they're at. I could be wrong. So Kong, though, I think, right, is of a Chinese ancestral name, if I'm not mistaken. Genghis Khan and Kong, right? I'm going to look this up while I'm speaking to you here, too. Let's go to the good old trusty Bard. But, so not only will she not really remember me, and then I've got to humbly remind her of that I've been a fellow now for the past decade, so it looks bad on them if they, yes, Chinese, the surname Kong means healthy or peaceful. Well, hopefully she's a peaceful one. She could be Korean, right? Common, it's also in Korean too, right? A lot of it intermix here. Now that said, I could be proven wrong with all of this, but I just showed you my email. Now I know why, right? I've known why they abbreviate or redact online, because exactly what I'm doing is that. So here she's interviewing me, a younger Asian American, right? And my family is, right, how many more years you would think of familial experience speaking the King's English? Hey, now it will sound racist, but it's not, right? It's like, would you hire a mathematician whose all families historically have been math teachers and grew up in that environment, right? Similarly, though, we see where lawyers and doctors push through their less than intelligent offspring through the systems in America to become doctors. We see this everywhere. You see this nepotism everywhere. So now this Peggy Kong, right, Peggy? So she, again, it's in America, it is credit over merit. So you're crediting people because of this diversity push rather than meriting them of who they are. Again, it goes converse to how history just seems bizarre and just warped. It goes converse to Martin Luther King's, right? Judge a person by who they are rather than the color of their skin. But that's exactly now what the Democratic Party of then Martin Luther King is now doing the opposite, right? Where I think the Republican parties have switched every which way, but I think Trump, despite his outward manifestations of being a white, orange-haired, no disrespect, Mr. President, I still think you're a handsome man, but right, an older gentleman, is more freedom-loving and freedom-minded than definitely Harris, which is promoting this rampant diversity and this crediting of people, regardless of capability. So again, why am I interviewing for the 12th time? Let's see how she approaches this interview. Why did the Peace Corps fumble the football greatly, costing me more money, right, out of pocket for their gross missteps and mishaps? So I've written a letter to President Trump, hopefully President Trump the second time now, requesting that I'm able to see my mother, as well as 7 more minutes before I'm asking to join here, to see my mother down in Florida, Miss Carrie Kenlin Tome, as well as allowing me to do the Peace Corps or the State Department. But obviously, number one is my heart goes out to my mom. I don't know what her mentality is. I don't see why they just can't video her saying that she doesn't want to see me, if she even has that capability. But if she doesn't have that capability mentally, with Alzheimer's, dementia, and all the other issues that she's had, of which I'm writing my second book, then why wouldn't you let me visit her? Right? It's just a highly corrupted scheme. I mean, we're talking about an absolute bottom-feeding scheme, right? Again, part of my letter to President Trump, we built nothing but lawyers and debt, right? And the whole lawyering thing goes with these guardians who are absolute scumbags, doing absolutely nothing but continuing to destroy families and just pocketing money off we Americans that have built something. I'm not a hell and fire, brimstone type of person like my mom, but you would think rectal cancer would be too soft of an ending for some of these guardians. So I will be joining here right now. We'll talk. I will be asking to let in with Peggy. Again, let's see how she starts off. It's always a technique. Let them speak first. And then a friendly reminder. I'm going to ask her, while I have my Trump cup here, by the way, President Trump cup, while I sip from this, why, and I'm going to include all of them in an email coming up, but why, like, does she feel that funding will be limited? I'm going to ask her some questions at the end, if she allows for it, questions, but I'll ask them anyway, right? So I'll leave that up here. You just don't know. She could, and then again, it's like they could be late 2 or 3 times to the meeting, and it's not your fault, right? It's like, so it's a government and governance, but yeah, the Peace Corps, what a joke that was. I mean, blatant fumbling from this Christy Jones James, whatever, and of course they don't have emails with names because it's the government and they don't want to hold any culpability or liability or responsibility, all of the itty words. So yeah, just trying my best, but I do love China. It's an amazing country, and again, if you've watched all my videos, I think I have more freedoms here. I mean, you can carry your beer unless you're violent or a thief, right? And obviously marijuana is not not obviously, but some things that should be legalized, which I've now noticed, though, in the States are using that, is now that will be driving high when there's no like reported accidents. That's when I think at your best, you're more paranoid, more cautious of cars on the road. Whereas some of our presidents, Jefferson and the whole founding clan, I think, were all stoners. It's just history. Just know your history. I think Trump knows it a little bit more than Kamala. I think Kamala just glided through. To be honest, I think he's correct. I think she is the product, the product of diversity. I don't find her that clever. I think she slept her way to the top, right? He didn't want to say that because then she would have fired back at him about his missteps as well. But there we go.
Thank you, Clifford.
Yes, hello, Peggy. Hello.
Hello, thank you for your continued interest in the program.
Yes, 10 years running.
We do not have any notes from previous interviews.
Yes.
So as such, every year is like a new year,
No,
at least for the review.
I know our government very well, so yes.
Okay, but I understand it could be there could be a little frustration on your side, but
No,
you're
I'm
probably
not
an
frustrated.
expert.
I was just telling friends like it was great. I had the Nepal online assignment, but you're right
Uh-huh.
to continuously and then be in the same profession doing it. You know, continuing to grow your experience and in your education, and then continuing with
Right.
the interviews. Right, it's that's kind of bizarre, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, but at this point you're probably an expert and you know what I'm going to ask. So
Sure.
please bear with me.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm just going to start off by reading what I read to every applicant, and from there we'll just go straight to the questions.
Great.
Okay. So let me see. Okay. So this interview is the next step in the application review after having determined your eligibility for the English Language Fellow Program. The purpose of this interview is to collect additional information regarding several specific behavioral competencies that are considered to be relevant for success as a fellow. I will be asking you to provide real life examples of how you demonstrated specific behaviors. Please be aware that the interview does not guarantee you'll be considered for a fellowship assignment. You will have 30 minutes to respond to 7 questions, so please pace yourself accordingly. I will be taking notes during our interview, and I may need to pause to make a note. I may also stop to ask you follow up questions or ask for more details. After the interview, these notes will be placed in your application file. If you need a question to be repeated or clarified, please ask. Are you ready to proceed?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, fellowship projects are written by the embassies as much as 18 months before the fellow actually arrives in country. So, by then, a number of factors may have changed in the original fellowship description, ranging from housing to daily duties. Tell me about a situation where you had to adjust to changes that you had no control over, and how did you handle it?
Well, Peggy, the notes may have disappeared, but these questions have remained the same the last decade. So yes,
Yeah,
my
especially if you
goodness.
did it every
Yeah,
year.
right.
Every year, yeah.
Yeah,
So you should have
yeah,
great answers.
I don't know. I'm very flexible. So
Mhm.
in terms of my housing and everything, I've been primarily within Asia for the last decade plus. I've taught at some wonderful living arrangements and some wonderful classroom designs to not
Mhm.
so new and cutting edge, but I think it's
Mhm.
interesting. I think as a teacher, you especially EFL or especially any foreign language, and if you're doing what hopefully I will be doing eventually here, Peggy, live for us, is that you should be prepared for anything. And
Mhm.
that's part of the beauty of it. You should be able to teach with 2 rocks in the Sahara Desert versus a state of the art height board or what have you. So I think that's one of my better attributes is that I'm very flexible. I can't really pinpoint one
Mhm.
in particular. I will use my current situation. So I'm now finally back at a Chinese university near my wife and my son. So it took some while
Mhm.
after the pandemic. So it is
Right.
a medical university. So generally, and it's an older institution. So the way the classroom is designed, or the one that they have us currently teaching in, is the
Mhm.
standard road classes, right? So ultimately, I
Mhm.
think moving forward in education, the best way is to have the round table and have groups together in any field, in
Mm.
any class, because we all have instant chat GPT or whatever. We've got instant AI and instant information at our
Mhm.
fingertips for soul learning and for output. But to come together and give group projects and learn from one another, I think is the best way moving forward. However, using that, the road circumstance that I'm thrusted with, right, I still try to get the students to work in teams as best as
Mhm.
possible.
Okay. All right. So sometimes fellows encounter obstacles that stand in the way of completing their assignment. Tell me about a time when you had to formulate a creative alternative or solution to a problem. How did your resourcefulness affect the situation? And I think your virtual project was cut short,
That's
was it?
right. That's
So
right.
I don't
That's what
know.
I was going to use as my
Okay.
example. Yeah, unfortunately, it was on the university or the Lumbini, right? Lumpini. I forget how to correctly pronounce that in Nepal. It was just cut short without any explanation. I never really got
Mm,
any further explanation, but we did have some ending classes that we
Mhm.
kind of knew that it was ending. So just said goodbye. It was a pleasure. I think it was just a couple months that we were into it, so that's always disheartening. Uh, Without a clear direction, though, I don't know if we ever really had a clear direction from the onset. All
Mhm.
respect to that embassy, the embassy in Nepal. Maybe that was an
Mhm.
issue, but if you have a clear direction, then you just got to expedite and push forward the the ultimate goal quicker. Not right,
Mhm.
whatever what level of English the students are at, but try to move end the end line closer.
Mhm. And so you were teaching for 3 months and it just ended abruptly. Is that what
Yes.
happened? Or
I don't
wow.
know. Maybe maybe you can find out in
No,
the office from me.
I just do the
Yeah,
application and
yeah.
then
I
so.
have absolutely no idea. I got a letter of reference from I think the Nepalese American director, but yeah, it's just it.
Mhm.
Yeah, could have been funding. Probably just funding.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. All right. Okay. So, fellows often find themselves in positions of influence by providing opinions, giving direction, or taking the lead on activities both inside and outside of the classroom. Give me an example of when you significantly influenced a group's activity, direction, or opinion. How did your leadership motivate others and affect the situation?
Yeah, I've done, yeah, throughout the 12 years, I've been fortunate to have some leadership roles. I think the best
Mhm.
institutions, especially when you're a foreigner teaching in a foreign land, is that they want to learn from you as much as I'd like to learn from them, right? And I don't believe one
Mhm.
style is perfect, but you pick and you adapt and you pry from others and you try to make your
Mhm.
best approach. So again, just using my current situation, I'm giving a seminar on medical English, right? How to the best approach to teach medical English,
Mhm.
right? Two foreign students who are non-English speaking students, as well as best approaches in class styles, discipline, management. So I think
Mhm.
that's wonderful. And this is right my first term, so I get to know and this is for the faculty here, right? For my
Mhm.
Chinese fellow colleagues. So I get to know them better. They get to know my style, and we can learn from each other. So I appreciate that opportunity from them to do that.
And is there, and just to, just out of curiosity, because you're teaching like STEM or medical English now, ESP. So, how did you sort of get into that field, into the ESP field?
Yeah, well, my master's is in long-term healthcare, right? So I
Oh,
that
right, right,
yeah,
right, right.
right. So that's what I was doing. I was doing medical sales before the 2000. I'm an old man, Peggy. So before the 2017 or 2007, right? Oh 08
Okay.
crash. I was doing that.
Oh,
My mother was a French teacher. My father was in business, and then I just switched gears. I do still teach oral English. That's still on my
uh huh, uh huh.
schedule.
Right.
However, right, it's a pretty famous. I think it's like the third or fourth most popular university here in China. So I'm fortunate to be here
Mm,
this year. Yeah.
okay, great. Yeah, that makes sense. I should have connected the dots, of course, but okay. And so you were in the medical field for how long before you went into English language teaching?
Yeah, I was in medical software, medical consultancy so since I grad right primarily since I had graduated university, so that was 1999. So about 8 years, almost a decade, and then the bottom just fell out. There was just
Hmm.
literally everyone was just worried about their job, let alone expending any money for high-priced medical
Right.
software that was going to change next year, and you'd have to pay as much or more. And
Uh
so
huh.
at that point, my partner was in this field. So
Oh,
yeah, and my mother was a French teacher, and then I have my English
right.
literature undergraduate. So they
Uh
both
huh.
advised me to travel and to do it.
Ah.
So and I've always loved Asia. So I just yeah. So I came to China, and the rest is
Mhm.
history. Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Starting in the medical field and then teaching English and
Yeah.
traveling the world.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So for 10 months, you will be living in another country, immersed in the culture of your country of assignment. Describe an experience of cultural awareness that had an impact on your life or your worldview. What did you learn from the experience, and in what ways did you respond or adapt?
Yeah, I've been fortunate. I took a couple years off, a year off to teach in Vietnam, and then a year in the Middle East in Saudi. And then I was also, obviously, I was displaced, unfortunately, from China during the virus years, the viral years. But I had a wonderful time in Cambodia and in Thailand, so as well as a little bit in Vietnam again. So I think to me, it's always just been right the outside of the classroom
Mm-hmm.
experience. Like we're all relatively focused. If you're garnering or obtaining information as a student, it's the classroom is generally universally the same, relatively. How we teach is obviously changing drastically, but outside of the classroom is always different. I love it.
Hmm.
That's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm continuing 12 years of interviews, Peggy, so I can
I know.
so I can
I
finally
don't
get
know
placed
what is
somewhere.
happening.
So yeah, so if I can get placed anywhere, I'd be up for any assignment anywhere on our planet. I love our planet. I love the globe. I love people. So it would be more exciting for me, right, to learn about them and learn about their culture and ways of life and eating styles. So yeah. So I don't not one in particular because every country, every region, every province within countries are different, right? So it's just all about
Mhm.
enjoying the experience and being as open minded as possible. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, fellows typically work closely with colleagues at their host institutions and the regional teachers associations. Tell me about a time when you had to build relationships and work with others as part of a team. Please use an example when you were not the designated leader and what was the result.
Sure. This one is not so good actually because we this was coming out of the viral years.
Hmm.
So this was at a university. It was a named university out of Vietnam. So this was right when borders were opening up throughout the world. So I was actually I was displaced and relatively stuck in Cambodia for almost 2 years, right at the height of the virus, right? The only other country I could really travel to was just back home to the States. There was no reason at that point because I was teaching online. So a job offer to teach at a university in Vietnam, a brand new one, with
Hmm.
several colleagues that I'm still friends with today. We think it's a money laundering scheme because there was not one student in ever for like 3 months, and we just had continuous meetings. So
Oh.
that became frustrating because I'm a teacher. I'm not much due respect to you, Peggy, but I'm not an
Hmm.
administrator, right? I prefer teaching. So it got to that point where what are we doing here? And then trying to talk to the younger owner, why are we not having students? It was a beautiful, like, kind of a different Liberace s type of, if you remember Liberace or Prince, like a
Uh-huh.
very extravagant university, like a three-story university in the heart of Vietnam, like a three-story. But it wasn't a university. You couldn't issue it was just named a university. It was truly bizarre, and we had to be busy. It was just busy work. So at that point,
Oh.
yeah, we just had to like relatively unionize and say like, what is going on to the owner, right? Like we
Uh-huh.
didn't sign up for that. So that was disheartening that we didn't have any students to actually teach. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And were there other foreign teachers, or
Yeah,
were they mostly?
fellow American. I don't want to disclose the name, right, out of respect. You
Oh,
know,
no,
it's
no, no.
like yeah,
No, I'm
but
just wondering if there were local
yeah, no,
hires
it
or
was a
like.
fellow American teacher, an Australian teacher, a British teacher. There was like
Wow.
eventually there was 5 or 6 foreign teachers on staff with 0 students for the 3 months I was there until I left, and then yeah, so it was truly bizarre. Yeah.
Wow. But
Yeah.
given housing and still getting paid.
Getting paid and give well, very well, and probably our apartments were probably in one of the better buildings in yeah, I'll disclose the city in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh. Yeah, so that's why
Oh,
we think it might be a
wow.
money laundering, like a school, right, where you can like non-legal money is funded through a legal entity, kind of, right? Because why would you not have students for like, and they were still open. They're still open to this day, and my friend still
Wow.
lives there, and he's friends with, I don't know if like who's still working there because then they added on, and then the people I work with left or taught didn't
Uh-huh.
teach with, right, work with left, but they said yeah, there's just still no students, so it's a truly bizarre. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And at what point were you like, I need to go and get another job?
It wasn't. I could have stayed there. I just told. There was two of us that were. I was like, look, I signed up to teach. I don't care how much money I'm being
Hmm.
paid. Like something's not kosher. I just don't feel this is correct. And I wasn't worried
Right.
about maybe possibly getting arrested working
Uh-huh.
with it. It was just like this is just bizarre. And then he wanted us
Right.
like office hours. I'm like, why are we in the office when there's no students? Like, just yeah, it was just strange.
Wow. Maybe to get investors to come in and
Right.
see that it's
Yeah. Hey,
to see that it's
that's a good one. I'm gonna share that with my buddy. Yeah, to just see. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
You
You
can
have
write a book
experience
about it.
laundering money, Peggy.
Korean dramas, perhaps.
Okay. Oh, is your surname is your Korean ancestry?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Like it could be Chinese as well, right? Listen, yeah. Yeah.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
think generally Chinese they spell it like Kong. They go with
Hong. Yes.
that spelling,
Yes.
but
Very
more
good.
Koreans, I think. Yeah.
What did you teach in Korea? ESL in Korea?
I when I was studying abroad in Korea, I did a little teaching on the side, but it wasn't like a full time. It was just when I was interning. But I'm from Hawaii, and most of my teaching background is from
Wow.
Hawaii.
I was thinking about
Yeah.
Hawaii, but the cost of living if moving back.
Oh yeah.
My goodness.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
my best friend
Yeah.
growing up in Chicago was the Chas. So I
Oh,
grew up on
yeah.
Kalbi and yes, so yeah. But I was thinking about it. It's very strict though. The working environment in Korea, in
Hmm,
Japan as
hmm.
well. China, it's like I've got a pretty easy
Oh,
university
I see.
schedule.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty
Right.
hands off. But yeah, is it? Have you heard things about working? But they have a pension plan for foreign
Oh,
teachers in Korea. They do. Yeah,
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 I think you're right. I think
yeah.
it is well, I think universities maybe could be more relaxed. But you know those hagwons, those small private schools with
Right.
that those I think I've heard it could be very intense and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
hours.
I'm too old, yeah,
Um,
for that.
but I hear that on the university level it seems more decent, I guess, and
Okay.
manageable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty ensconced in China, unless I get my deployment orders, I guess, with the
Well,
State Department
we'll
here.
see. I don't do the matching. I just do the interviews
I
and the
know, I know,
reviewing.
I know, I know.
Okay. So I do see that you do have some teacher training background.
Yes.
I think you mentioned. Let me see. Could you maybe talk more about your teacher training experience working with teachers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really been how we Westerners, well, in particular, how we approach the English language and Western language learning, right?
Hmm.
And especially with Asian cultures, and as you would know, maybe your parent, I don't know what generation you are, right? But it's the rote,
Hmm.
right? Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. One character
Hmm.
can mean 10,000 things ultimately, right? It's more of a
Hmm.
rote learning style as opposed
Hmm.
to a confluence like Chinese, right? You can read horizontally, you can read everywhere. It's just or gather.
Hmm.
You don't read, you glean or you comprehend, right?
Mm-mm.
So it's
Mm.
the understanding. I've never taught Arabic, but Arabic goes right to left, right? I think, right, and
Mhm.
that's why we're
Mhm.
always in conflict. I think the East and West with Arabic, they go right to left, we go left to right. But it's how you go about the best way of understanding and comprehending a language. So I think Western language or European languages, right? I try to explain and I teach the foreign teachers or the native teachers who are teaching English, right? That's what
Mhm.
I've done, right? Primarily in the past, what I'm doing then the next month here, how best to teach that subject matter or English to foreign students where that will propel them to better understand and further
Mhm.
comprehending English, right? So one word part of a sentence equals, paragraph and then the whole.
Mhm.
So that's primarily just cultural training.
Mhm. And would you do this like how often would you give trainings just in general throughout your career?
It depends. It's always, fortunately, unfortunately, I've traveled and then the new job, so it's kind of like it's always kind of like a feeling out process. But then they find out that I have a lot of experience and a lot of
Mm.
personal education, so then they want me to do something like this is my first term and I'm ready. I'm asked to do this, which I don't mind because
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
it's interesting. So it depends. It just depends on the situation. Fortunately, I was not in a leadership role with that Vietnamese university. That is not
Oh
on my
yeah.
resume. For very, I would not. I would not have. I would have clashed because I just didn't see the whole point of having a school open without students for a
Right.
year. I think they're going on two. I don't know how many. I don't know
Wow.
what matriculation they have now, but I've heard zero. Right? It's still bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have all of this experience, even in the private sector, in education, in the medical field. So, in a perfect world, what would be your ideal fellowship based on skills you want to use and skills you want to gain?
I just
So that
want
could,
one live fellowship, Peggy. I don't care. You can put me in the most remote. I don't care. I just want the experience. I mean, I love teaching online.
Mhm.
I like the hybrid approach. I like being
Mhm.
made available for my students anytime, any place. So that would be one of the things I would say. Look, ring me up if you want to practice your English skills. I'd offer that to the students wherever
Mhm.
I'm placed as well.
Mhm.
However, that said, yeah, I just want a placement. So I don't envision
But
any
but
ideal. Yeah.
But
Sorry.
is there? I mean, you've been teaching
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah.
So, is there a subject area or skill that you like to teach? Some teachers love just teaching grammar or reading,
Yeah. I'm not.
writing,
Okay. Yeah. I'm not a
or
grammartist.
ESP like
E-
a medical English
Right,
for the
right, right.
medical field.
I'll be. I'm not a grammartist per se. I'm a literalist, right? I write books. I'm not. So grammar. I do teach grammar. But not forte. I couldn't give you right how many tenses. To me, it's all about practice, especially in oral
Mhm.
English. So I've generally been tasked with that. Usually, Asian students, I find them their English grammar and almost
Mm,
reading and writing is better than our current American crop of students, right?
agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, but then when it comes to oral speaking, right, that's where it lacks because they just
Mhm.
don't practice it. But their teachers do a
Right.
phenomenal job with the grammar part. So that's
Mhm.
what I don't like. Other than that, I'm open for everything. Yes, everything and anything.
And
Yes.
how do you like teaching in the medical field, the English for the medical students,
I love it.
or
I was offered right now that it was fully open China. Right, I was offered in this in Sheung here. I was either offered with a Sino Aussie business program. I'm in like
Mhm,
University Row here, as you know, in the states we've got
mhm,
some cities just have like 5 or 6 universities in a row, right? So I'm in University Row here in Sheung. So this was a Sino Australian program with another big reputable university here. The reason I turned them down, like visa, had wanted me to go to Hong Kong and then rent a
mhm,
faculty apartment right outside the university. So those are two costs I just didn't feel like I needed to assume.
mhm,
But I love business English and then medical English, right? I like
mhm.
specific tailored English, although right for the fellowship, I probably just more oral. I would assume is right? Generally, well, all encompassing, I would assume, grammar and everything else. So, yeah, not a problem.
Okay. Okay, that's great. So those are all the questions I really have for you. Maybe
Okay.
just any updates about your application.
Yeah,
Maybe
no,
that
I think
if
the
you
email,
have.
yeah, my updated CV, that was about it. I'll
Okay.
email you. I don't think maybe I emailed you what I will be giving a seminar. I'm giving, how many hours? I'm like 12 hours, I think, to my faculty. I can email you right after this that document. Other than that,
Okay.
yeah, just hoping for the
Okay.
best.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know.
Yeah.
This process is very fluid, and sometimes projects fall through. But I admire your persistence.
I mean, yeah, maybe this century I could get. I mean, I'll keep doing it. I think it's kind of funny, and I love meeting. I mean, you interviewers, I've had a wonderful time. But
Mhm.
I don't understand the metrics though. You think it would be? I don't know. Maybe I'm like, why do I just not get picked? I'm like I'm the fat kid on the basketball court. I'm just not getting picked for some reason.
No,
Like,
and sometimes
yeah,
it just can be a matter of like projects
right,
and applicants.
right, right.
But I will have to say that teacher training is an important component of the
Okay,
program.
great.
So I think a lot of people that have more teacher training experience, working with teachers that are teaching ESL, and doing that, like working in a master's TESOL program,
Right,
I think that really is more, I don't know, preferred. It could be because teacher training is so important to this
right,
program.
right.
But
Okay,
but at the same time, there are people with just ESP experience,
right.
and they need teachers with ESP experience teaching medical. I mean, that teacher training component is not that important when you just have to teach medical to English for medical students. So
Right. One last question for you. Do you think a presidential change will change things the way it's operated or and funded?
no, no,
Okay.
I don't think so. I think in terms of funding, it's already, you know, these proposals are written 18 months in
They
advance.
are.
So if
Okay.
anything,
Okay.
maybe in the future, but
Right.
we can't say. But I
Right.
think the program has been quite steady, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed over the years, even the stipend increased. For dependents, I think there are better benefits now than just a year ago, even. So it seems like it's still a thriving program.
Great. Cool. Yes.
Yeah,
Fingers crossed. If you can put
yeah. So
teachers training, if there's an extra star that you can tap in there, Peggy,
no,
I'd
no,
appreciate
but
it.
you do have you did mention that's why I always ask if you have teacher training
Okay.
experience.
Great. Yeah.
I yeah, so within 5 business days you'll find out about the final review of your application. So what that means is, and you probably already know well, you receive an email saying whether or not you're in the pool to be matched. And if you are matched to a project, then you generally receive an email. I would say around the matching process starts in January and ends in, I would say, April, May, summer-ish. I would say April, May. So if you don't hear anything by May and you want to know, I think their program is generally good with responding to you and telling you whether or not how many projects are already filled and whether or not there is a chance of getting matched to a project.
If not, I'll
So
prepare for my 13th interview next year. Then.
exactly,
Yeah.
and you'll tell them that.
Yes, that's okay.
Or maybe
Okay.
maybe you shouldn't, and then you'll just
Lucky
throw
number
them away.
13. That's got to be the year. If it's not this year, it's next year. It's got to be the year. But yes, is that's one of these terms, right? Isn't aloha? It's like hello and goodbye, right? Then, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Do you have any
It
more
is.
questions for me or no?
No, no.
Okay.
So
Yes.
you'll within 5 business days you'll find out
All
about the
right.
review of your
Great. Well,
application.
yeah.
And
Where are you
yes,
based
and
in New York? You're in New York or in the East
so
Coast now?
I'm in DC. I'm
Okay.
in the
Great.
DC area.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay. Great.
yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
enjoy
Well,
the rest
aloha.
of your
Yes.
morning.
Yes, it is morning here. Yes. Okay. Bye,
Yes.
Peggy. Thank you
Okay.
so much. Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.
Bye.